In continuation of our mark scoring videos for this October examination, that is IP October 2021, I am going to explain few important very short answer questions. You know that there are 10 short answer questions in the question paper. You have to answer 10. So there is no choice. So each question carries 2 marks. So 10 into 2, you should get 20 marks. So my aim is to teach very short answer questions in a very shorter way. That means simply you should score 2 marks. Remember, the answer must be in 1 or 2 lines. In few questions, the answer will be in 1 word only. Right. So from all the chapters, we are not going to get very short answer questions. I framed these questions, or I framed this lesson based on the model question paper issued or given by the Board of Intermediate Education, Telangana. Right? So let us go into 2 marks questions. They are also called very short answer questions. They are in the first section. So you should answer all the 10, right? So straight away, let us go to first question. The first question is from first chapter, physical world. From this physical world, you will get only one question. That's the reason why you will get 2 marks from this chapter. Now let us straight away go to the first question. What is physics? There are many definitions for physics. I am not going into the details. Just we discuss the answer which brings you 2 marks, right? Now what is physics? It is the branch of physics, it is the branch of science, which deals with the natural phenomena. If you write this, that is enough. So physics deals with all the things except life. That is the greatness of physics. Physics deals with everything other than life. So even if you write in another way, you will get 2 marks. Physics deals with mass and energy. Physics is the branch of science which deals with the mass and energy. The whole universe is made up of these 2 things. So physics deals with everything. The best answer is it is the branch of science which deals with the natural phenomena that occur in nature. Right? Right. Now let us go to the second question. What are the fundamental forces in nature? In nature, there are 4 fundamental forces. You have to remember and you have to write. The first one is gravitational force. This we discussed, gravitational force. And the second one is electromagnetic force. Electromagnetic force. Very simple to remember. And third and fourth are related to nuclear forces. So one is weak nuclear force. Weak nuclear force. And the fourth one is strong nuclear force. That's it. So remember, there are 2 nuclear forces and the one is gravitational force and the second one is electromagnetic force. If you write these 4, you will get 2 marks. Just you have to name. You will find many forces in our daily life and all those forces, they must come under any one of these categories. So all the forces are categorized into 4 types. So that is the reason why they are called fundamental forces that occur in nature, right? So this is about the first chapter. So first chapter, I chose only 2 questions based on the basic learning material supplied by Board of Intermediate Education. Now second chapter, units and measurements. From this chapter, let us go into the first question, distinguish between accuracy and precision. So physics is physics is the science of measurement. So all measurements what we take nowadays are nothing but the product of physics. In the beginning, physics was meant for measurements, right? In measurements, we come across these two words. One is called accuracy and the second one is called precision. You have to write at least 1 point on each side. Better if you write 2, you will get 2 marks. What do you mean by accuracy? Accuracy in measurement in doing some experiment. Now, accuracy tells about the closeness of the measured value. Accuracy tells about the closeness. How close is the measured value? How close is the measured value with that of true value? For example, the value of G is 9.8 meter per second square. This is the exact value, that is the true value, that is the real value. I did an experiment by using simple pendulum. I got the value of G as 9.7. One of my friends got the value as 9.6. Another friend got 9.5. So out of these set of 4 values, out of set of 3 values, which is very nearer to the real value? The real value is 9.8. So this is more accurate. So accuracy tells about how close is the measured value. This is my measured value to the real value, right? Precision tells to what extent or to what resolution or extent, to what resolution a value can be measured. This is the definition. What does it mean? By using a simple scale, ordinary scale, I can measure the length of this pen as 9.1 centimeter. If I use vernier calipers, I can find the length of this pen as 9.14 centimeter. So after the decimal, I am going up to 2. 2 positions I am measuring, I am able to measure. So this is having more precision. So here the second digit is missing. So to what resolution a value can be measured. So that is nothing but precision, right? This precision depends on least count. Least count is the minimum value that can be measured by that instrument. Leave all the things aside. So it depends on least count. Remember as LC. It does not depend on least count. Which one? Accuracy. Now, the third one. It depends on errors. So if there is an error, your accuracy changes. It does not depend on errors. So these are the 3 differences. By writing any 2 of these differences, you can score 2 marks. That's all, right? What are the different types of errors that can occur in a measurement? There are 2 types of errors that can occur in any measurement. One is called systematic error and the second one is called random error. If you write these 2, you will get 2 marks. How many types of errors? One is systematic error, the second one is random error. Remember these 2. So remember S and R, the shortcut. Systematic errors and random errors. Systematic errors are fixed, but random errors are not fixed. For example, the scale, I took a meter scale. Instead of having 100 centimeters, it is having only 99 centimeters. So whenever I measure with this scale, I will get an error of 1 centimeter. So that fixed error is called systematic error. What do you mean by random error? So whenever I take a measurement, the error will be different. So all the time, the error will be changing. I am doing an experiment with the current. Because of the fluctuations in the current, I am not getting the same reading in all my attempts. So that is a random error. So nobody is asking you to define systematic error, to define random error. No need to define. Just the question reads as, what are the different types of errors that you see in the measurement? Only two you have to write, you will get 2 marks. The best way to remember is SR, systematic error, random error. I think you can write the answer. Now, third question of second unit is, how systematic errors be minimized or can be minimized or eliminated. So, just now I told you. So, what is the best way? I should throw that scale which is giving error because of that 99 divisions. So, I should choose a best scale. The best method is, you have to choose a better instrument. If my instrument is good, my reading will be correct. So, I have to choose a better instrument, a good quality instrument. The second one is, I have to adopt good technique of measurement. So, I have to choose a good technique of measurement. Is this clear? Right. The third one is, I should keep aside my personal bias. Suppose I don't like to write 3, so I skip 3 all the time. That is my personal error. So, these are the 3. These are the 3. You should write only 2. Choose a better technique of measurement, choose a better instrument. You keep aside your personal biasing. You try to minimize the errors in order to minimize the errors, right? Now, what are significant figures and what do they represent when repeating the result of a measurement? The question is, what are significant figures? What do you mean by significant figures? I did an experiment. At the end, I got some result as 10/3. I did some experiment. So, after doing the calculation, I ended up with 10/3. Now, what is my answer? My answer is 3.33, unending 3 3s. So, what I do? I make it 3.34. Now, once again, if I multiply it with 3, so how much I will get? 12, 1, 10. So, I will get 10.02. But actually, I am supposed to get 10. My result is giving some extra 0.02. This is wrong, right? So, I am representing my result as 3.34. In this 3.4, how many digits are there? 3. The first 2 digits are reliable digits. And the third digit is having some uncertainty. So, I should tell you the result in such a way that uncertainty is minimum. But I cannot eliminate uncertainty. So, I am choosing reliable digits plus 1 uncertain digit, or the digit having uncertainty. So, what you are supposed to write in the exam that you want? Significant figures are nothing but the number of digits which are reliable plus 1 digit with uncertainty. So, they are called significant figures. If you write that, you will get 4 marks. Now, the question reads, what do they represent when reporting? They represent the minimum uncertainty. No need to write that, right? Let us go to next. Distinguish between fundamental units and derived units. It's very simple. Fundamental units and derived units. Unit is defined for a fundamental physical quantity. For example, mass, length, time. So SI unit is kg, this is meter, this is second. So units of fundamental physical quantities are called fundamental units. Units of fundamental physical quantities are called fundamental units. That's all. Now what do you write? Units of derived physical quantities are called derived units. That's all. You will get 2 marks. If you want example, I can give. So for example, meter. Meter is the unit for fundamental quantity called length. Now here the example is meter square. Meter square or square meter is the unit for area. Area is a derived physical quantity. You know the difference between fundamental and derived. Fundamental does not depend on anything. Derived depends on fundamentals. So here for example, area is length into breadth. So it is depending on 2 fundamental quantities. That's all. Right. Now, why do you have different units for the same quantity? It's a silly question, simple question, no meaning in it, right? For example, let us take length. For length, I can have millimeters, I can have micrometers, I can have nanometers, I can have kilometers, I can have centimeter. The biggest unit for length is parsec. That is used to measure the astronomical distances. But all are from an SI unit called meter. All are obtained from meter. So for same length, why should I have these many number of units? Right. If I want to measure the thickness of a thread, I should choose millimeter. If I want to measure the thickness of a polythene cover, I should go for micron. Micron is nothing but micrometer, this one. If I want to measure the distance between 2 cities of India, I should go for kilometers. So what does it mean? So the physical quantity length has a wide range of magnitudes. What do you mean by magnitudes? Values. So depending upon the magnitude, I should choose the unit. For example, if you go to vegetable market, you buy tomatoes in kgs, kilograms. If you go to a jewelry shop, if you want to have a chain or a bracelet or a ring, you won't buy in terms of kgs. Generally, you may not be that much rich. So there you use gram. If you go to, if you want to have rice for your whole family members for a period of year, then you have to go for the rice in quintals. So you have to choose the unit depending upon the magnitude of the physical quantity. Why we are having many units? Because of a wide range of magnitudes of that particular physical quantity, right? What is dimensional analysis? So what do you mean by dimensional analysis? So dimensional analysis is related to derived physical quantity. So just now I gave an example, area. Area is a derived physical quantity. The area is length into breadth. So it is depending on 2 lengths. So length into length, its dimensional formula is L square. Its dimensional formula is L square. For example, if you want to write dimensional formula for force, F is equal to ma, you will get it as mLT to the power of minus 2. No need to write all these things in the exam. What I mean to say is, the derived physical quantity depends on fundamental physical quantity. So dimensional analysis or dimensional formula tells you how a derived physical quantity is depending upon various fundamental physical quantities. So dimensional analysis describes the dependency of a derived physical quantity on one or more number of fundamental physical quantities. For example, you take velocity. Velocity is length by time. So L over T. Its dimensional formula is Lt to the power of minus 1. It is depending on length and time. It is not depending on mass. So dimensional analysis is related to derived physical quantity. It tells you how it is depending upon various fundamental physical quantities. That analysis is called dimensional analysis. Don't write the definition of dimensional formula. It is the expression which tells you to what powers the fundamental physical quantities ought to be raised to get a derived physical quantity. Nothing else. That is no need. Right. Now let us go to the fourth chapter, that is motion in a plane. You will get one very short answer question. So this under vectors I discussed few very short answer questions, I think in the video number 6. In the 6th video, I discussed a few very short answer questions. I am discussing few more excluding those questions, right. Now, there is a vector P is equal to 2i plus 4j plus 14k and vector Q is equal to 4i plus 4j plus 10k. Vectors you should put a bar, right, that I already discussed. Now, he is asking us to find the magnitude of P plus Q. Magnitude means value, just now I told you. Now, what is P? P is 2i plus 4j plus 14k. This is P. And what is Q? Q is 4i plus 4j plus 10k. I am not putting bars, I have to put or an arrow or a cap. Just add them, that will give you P plus Q. P plus Q is once again a vector. So 2 plus 4, 6, I plus 8j plus this is 24k. Now in the question he is asking magnitude. Magnitude is indicated by modulus, mod. Now how to write the value of P plus Q, that is the magnitude of P plus Q. You have to indicate it by mod. Just how to get the mod? Square 6, 8 and 24 and add them. That I already discussed. So it becomes 6 square plus 8 square plus 24 square. So this is 36 and this is 64. I think this is 576. You add, you will get some answer. So I think it is 576, 64, 36. So what is the square root of 676? I think 26. So 26 into 26. So this is 6, 7, right. So I want the square root of 676. So square root of 676 is nothing but 26. So answer is you have to write 26 units. I already told you in that chapter number, video number 6, right. What is the acceleration of a projectile at the top of its trajectory? So I told you projectile is something which is thrown upwards with an angle theta with the horizontal. This is called a projectile. This we already discussed in that video, right. Now the question is, what is the acceleration of projectile at the top of its trajectory? Acceleration at the top of its trajectory is always g, and velocity is u cos theta. If velocity is asked, this is u cos theta because this is always constant. Velocity is the horizontal component and acceleration always acts downwards. So that is the answer. That's it. Right. Now, let us go to another chapter. From this also you will get only 1-2 marks question. So most of the questions of this chapter are, the answer will be law of conservation of linear momentum. Remember, law of conservation of linear momentum. If you write this, you will get, sometimes you will get 2 marks and sometimes you will get 1 mark. Shortcut, right? When a bullet is fired from a gun, the gun gives a kick in the backward direction. Explain. Suppose you have a rocket. When rocket is fired, gases go in this direction, this will go in the opposite direction. Instead of rocket, I am having a pistol in my hand. When the bullet is fired, the gun recoils. That is due to law of conservation of linear momentum. If you write this, you will get 2 marks. Momentum, momentum. Suppose this is, capital M is mass of the pistol or gun and small m is the mass of the small bullet. So according to law of conservation, conservation means remaining same. So before the firing, the momentum is 0. So momentum before firing must be equal to total momentum after the firing. So initially both are at rest. So momentum is mass into velocity. Your velocity is 0. So before firing, the total momentum is 0. So what about after firing? So m, its velocity is small v and its velocity will be capital V. What does it mean? I mean to say, since the mass is more, the velocity of the gun will be less. Since the mass of the bullet is less, the speed of the bullet will be very high. That is the reason. You are supposed to choose a gun such that its weight is more, its mass is more. You have to choose a bullet such that it is very small in size. Right. So equate this. So mv, this is related to gun, is equal to mv related to bullet. So there must be some minus. Or you can write P gun is equal to minus P bullet. What does it indicate? They are vectors. Whenever you have negative sign, then indicate that they are moving in opposite direction. So whenever a bullet is fired, when bullet goes in this direction, definitely the gun moves in the backward direction. So it will press your hand or shoulder while you are firing. So in order to reduce that force being applied on your shoulder, you have to choose the gun such that its mass is very high. When mass is very high, the velocity will be very less. When mass is very less, in the case of a bullet, velocity will be very high. That's the reason, right? So what is the answer you are supposed to write? Due to law of conservation of linear momentum. That's all. Don't write all these things. This is all for only understanding purpose. If a bomb at rest explodes into 2 pieces, the pieces must travel in opposite direction. Same answer, same explanation. Here this is the bomb. So the bomb at rest explodes. So initial momentum is 0. Initial momentum is 0. Into 2 pieces. So let us say into 2 pieces. The mass of one is m1, the mass of other fragment is m2. So from this m1 v1 plus m2 v2. So what do you get? m1 v1 must be equal to negative of m2 v2. If this goes in this direction, the other piece must go in this direction. So when suddenly it explodes into 2 pieces, they must travel in opposite direction. That's all. So what is the answer you are supposed to write? Due to law of conservation of linear momentum. That's all. Right. I think you are following. Can the coefficient of friction be greater than 1? So coefficient of friction mu is equal to F by N, where F is frictional force and N is called normal reaction. N is called normal reaction. The value of mu is always less than 1, but I am specifying but in very few conditions mu can be greater than 1. When mu is greater than 1, when the two surfaces which are in contact are over polished. So this also I explained in the video related to friction, how to minimize the friction. The best way to minimize the friction is to polish the surface. To some extent you have to polish. If you are polishing the surfaces to a larger extent, that means when they are heavily polished, electrostatic forces come into picture. In that case, F will be greater than N. So when F is greater than N, that means friction will increase instead of decreasing. In that case only mu is greater than 1. In all other cases, it is less than 1. So answer is, can the coefficient of friction be greater than 1? Yes. If you write this, you will get 1 mark. When surfaces are over polished. That's all. That's all. That is the answer. Even if you don't write this also, here the reason is not asked why. So for writing yes, you will get 2 marks. Right. Why does the car with a flattened tire stop sooner than the one with inflated tires? This also I explained. So these are the 2 tires of a car. Suppose in one car sufficient air is not there, then it gets flattened on the surface which touches the road. Here the area is less, here the area of contact is more. This I explained. Why does the car with flattened tires stop sooner? It stops sooner because area is more, friction will be more. In this case, friction is more. In this case, friction is less. So whenever friction is more, friction is nothing but the opposing force. The movement of the object, movement of the tire is opposed. So here more frictional force is opposing, so it stops sooner. Whereas it takes much time to stop. That's the difference. So here area is more, friction is more. Here area is less, friction is less. That's the answer. A horse has to pull harder during the start of the motion than later. Explain. This also I explained. The answer is, we have 3 types of frictions: static friction, kinetic friction, rolling friction. The previous one is related to rolling friction. The answer you have to write is, since static friction is greater than kinetic friction. That's all. If you write this statement, you will get 2 marks. Since static friction is greater than kinetic friction. Once you overcome static friction, it will be easier because you are in motion. In motion, you have kinetic friction. This also I explained in the marks scoring video related to friction. What happens to the coefficient of friction if the weight of the body is doubled? So there is an object on some surface whose mass is m, whose weight is w. So w is equal to mg. There will be a reactional force acting upwards. This is called a normal reaction. Newton's pair of forces, action, reaction. So any frictional force is directly proportional to normal reaction. So what is the question? What happens to the coefficient of friction if the weight is doubled? So if I increase the weight, that means if I make it twice, then normal reaction also becomes twice. So mu is equal to F by N. This is the definition. When N becomes doubled, F also becomes doubled. So 2 gets cancelled. So answer is, what happens to the coefficient of friction if the weight of the body is doubled? No change in mu. That's all. If you write this, you will get 2 marks. There is no change. Why does a heavy rifle not recoil as strongly as a light rifle using the same cartridges? Just I told you. So you have to choose a gun or a rifle with more weight. You have to choose a bullet whose weight or mass must be very, very, very less. So answer is, if mass, so let us say this is of rifle and this is of bullets, or according to the question, cartridge. The answer is this. So why does a heavy rifle has got more mass, less recoiling velocity, whereas the bullet has got less mass, more velocity. That's all. So answer is due to law of conservation of linear momentum. If you write this, you will get 2 marks. Right. Now let us enter into 7th chapter. It's very important because you will get two marks questions. So it carries 4 marks. 2 plus 2. Right. Is it necessary that a mass should be present at the center of mass of any system? Answer is no. If you write no, you will get 2 marks. The best example is ring. Suppose I take a ring, a golden ring. So there is no gold mass found here. The center of mass is the place where the whole mass appears to be concentrated. I am not finding any mass over here at the center of the ring. So this is the answer. If you take a hollow sphere, this is a metallic sphere, its center of mass is at the center. So at that center of mass, I am not finding any matter. So answer is no. If you write no, you will get 2 marks. No need of any further explanation. Why should a helicopter necessarily have 2 propellers? Propellers are nothing but rotors. Rotors are nothing but 2 fans. Now I can't draw a helicopter diagram. Imagine this is the helicopter. So for this helicopter, there are 2 fans. This is the bigger one and this is the smaller one. So they are called propellers. A bigger one and a smaller one. This rotates as well as this. Suppose we have only one propeller. Suppose this is rotating in this direction. In order to follow, for this chapter, the answer will be law of conservation of angular momentum. If you write this for many questions, you will get 2 marks. Law of conservation of angular momentum. In the previous one, linear momentum, only this change. Angular, there it was linear. So according to law of conservation of angular momentum, the helicopter will rotate in the opposite direction. So instead of moving forward, the helicopter is spinning about its own axis in the reverse direction to that of the fan. Fan is rotating in this direction and helicopter is rotating in this direction. What is the use? Simply it becomes a ceiling fan. It's of no use. So it is producing a torque. The counter torque opposite to this, the counter torque is produced by another propeller which is fixed to the tail of the helicopter. So helicopter should have definitely 2 propellers, 2 fans, due to law of conservation of angular momentum. We cannot open or close the door by applying force at the hinges. Why? So suppose this is a door and you find hinges here. So if I want to close or open the window or a door, so I have to generally hold the door at this point. The handle will be fixed at this end, not at this end. Because we have moment of force that is also called torque. So torque is equal to R cross F, perpendicular distance and force. So I am applying force in this way. This is the direction of the force. And this is my axis of rotation above which it is rotating. And this distance is called perpendicular distance. So torque gives you turning effect. Now if I apply force at this point, R becomes 0. When R becomes 0, torque tau becomes 0. When torque is 0, there is no turning. So if this is the, the door of the window, if I press the door at this point, it's of no use. So I have to apply force at the end, so that R will be more. When R is more R, you can do the same turning effect with less force. When R is less, you have to apply more force. Even if you apply more force also, you may not be able to turn it around. Is it clear? When I apply force at the hinges, R becomes 0, so the torque will be 0, so it is impossible to close or open the window, open the door, right? So this is very, very important. Now, by spinning an egg, by spinning eggs on a tabletop, how will you distinguish a hard-boiled egg from a raw egg? So I am supplied with 2 eggs. One is boiled and other one is the raw egg. So how do you distinguish which one is boiled and which one is raw? By spinning, not by cracking the outer shell. Even by shaking also we can count it. So if I rotate them simultaneously on the table, so this acts as a single object, whereas this we have liquid now inside. So this acts as a one rigid object, strong object. It won't act as a one object. It's a two-body problem now. Liquid inside is one, the outer shell is acting like one. So when I spin them simultaneously, this will spin for more time, and whereas this will spin for lesser time, that means it comes to rest earlier. It comes to rest very sooner. The one which comes to rest sooner is the raw egg, and the egg that keeps on rotating for some more time is the boiled egg. That's the answer, right? Why are spokes provided in a bicycle wheel? So this is a bicycle wheel, we have spokes. Why can't I have a disc type wheels? That is the question. So in order to answer is to increase moment of inertia. If you write this, you will get 2 marks. In order to increase moment of inertia. What does it say? Moment of inertia I is equal to mr square. This is the formula. Here mass, the mass of this wheel is concentrated on the rim. So mass is away from the center, so radius in this case is more. If you take a disc type, that means it's filled with the metal plate or something, then the center of mass or the mass concentrated will move toward the center. In this case, the distance between this and this is less, so R is less. So here R is more, I is more. Whenever you have more moment of inertia is the property of the rotating object. So it opposes the change in the rotation. So you will have stable rotation in this case. So answer you are supposed to write is to increase moment of inertia. It is indicated by I. I is equal to, actually this is sigma mr square. No need to write all those things. Why is it easier to balance a bicycle in motion? We know that. If you pedal the cycle, then it won't fall. If you stop pedaling, it will fall. So for any rotating wheel, there will be angular momentum. I am not going into the detail. Angular momentum comes into the picture when the object is undergoing rotatory motion. The name of the chapter is rotational motion only. When the wheel is rotating, it will have some angular momentum. The direction of the angular momentum is along this direction. So, because of this angular momentum, it will have stable motion. If it is not rotating, no angular momentum, no stability or no equilibrium. Or you can also write our shortcut answer due to law of conservation of angular momentum. If you write this also, they are supposed to give full marks. This is our favorite answer. Write the answer straight away due to the law of conservation of angular momentum. That's all. Right. What is the difference in the positions of a girl carrying a bag in one of her hands and another girl carrying a bag in each of her two hands? So, a girl carrying one bag, another girl carrying two bags in her two hands. Right, I could able to draw. What is the difference in the position of a girl carrying a bag in one of her hands and another girl carrying a bag in each of her two hands? Something is in the question, something is missing. What is the difference in the positions of center of mass? I think the one who typed the question missed that sentence. Center of mass. Suppose you take a stick of uniform thickness. So if I want to make it, I can make it to stand on this pen. It can be pivoted because equal masses are on either sides. Now, if I add, so what does it mean? The center of mass is at the center. So if I carry one bucket in my hand, what I do generally, whoever carries one bucket of water in one hand, suddenly they will lift the second hand. They lift the second hand because when this girl is carrying only one bag in her one hand, suppose I attach some mass here, then center of mass moves towards the more mass. So when the girl carrying only one bag in one of her hands, the center of mass moves toward this. So previously, in the case of the girl, the center of mass is on this line at her navel. Is it clear? Now center of mass moves towards this hand. Now if I attach two equal masses, then also I can pivot it on this pen. Equal masses. Once again same mass distribution. So center of mass once again comes back to its previous or original position. So what I mean to say, when the girl is carrying a single bag, the center of mass moves towards that bag. When she is moving with two bags, then her center of mass remains at the same place, at the same position. That's the answer. Why do we prefer a spanner of a longer arm as compared to that of a spanner of shorter arm? You know spanner. This is spanner. I can't draw properly. We have spanners like this. So for tightening nut and bolt, or for if I want to separate nut and bolt, then I use a spanner. So this is the arm. The question is, why do we prefer a spanner of longer arm? So you might have observed on the road, suppose you have a car, suddenly it got punctured, the tire got punctured. So what do you do? In the case of a bus driver, what they do, for this nut and bolt combination, they put a small spanner. To this spanner, they will put a long pipe, iron pipe. On this pipe, the conductor is made to stand. Is it clear? Right. Why? I am increasing R value. When R value is increased, even after the application of small force, the turning effect torque will be more. Just now I told you in the case of opening and closing of a window door. Is it clear? If I increase R, F value, it may be less, but the tau value will be more. So, easily you can remove the bolt or nut. Are you following? The length of the spanner, the arm of the spanner must be more. So, R will be more. So, the answer you are supposed to write is to satisfy in tau is equal to R and F, the longer arm will have more R value when compared to that of the shorter armor. Is it clear? So, if R is more, even after applying less amount of force, you can easily remove the nut from the bolt. Is this clear? Right. If the polar ice caps of the earth were to melt, what would be the effect of the length of the day? So, this is the earth, we know. We have Everest like some other polar caps. That means you have ice caps. So, when they melt, what happens? Suppose all the ice caps on the earth are melting due to the pollution, it is going to happen. Suppose all that ice becomes water, so it forms a layer around the globe. So, what is happening? The radius of the earth is increased. So, when radius increases, moment of inertia increases. Since I wrote I is equal to mr square. When I increases, omega decreases. Our grand old answer, law of conservation of linear momentum. Angular momentum, angular momentum. According to angular momentum, I into omega is constant, where I is called moment of inertia, omega is called angular velocity. You know omega in pendulum problem, we wrote it as 2 pi by t. So, when I increases, omega decreases. Omega decreases means omega is equal to 2 pi by t. When this decreases, this increases. Here t is, what is t? The length of the day. So, now the length of the day is 24 hours. Suppose all the ice caps, all the mountains of ice, if they melt, then the daytime will be around 26 hours or 30 hours, who knows. Are you following? So, answer is increases. If you write increases, you will get 2 marks. This is all the explanation. No need to write all this funda. Now, this is the 11th chapter, mechanical properties of fluids. Fluids means gases as well as liquids. Combinedly, they are called fluids. From this, you will get 2 questions, that means 4 marks. Very, very important. Is this clear? Define viscosity, what is its units and dimension formula. Viscosity is nothing but friction. Now, both gases and liquids, when they are flowing, you can imagine them as the layers. Suppose water is flowing in the canal. You can imagine some layers of water. So, one layer and another layer are touching each other. There will be relative motion. The frictional force that opposes the relative motion between any 2 layers of a fluid is called viscosity. Viscosity is the opposite, the property of the fluid that opposes the motion of the fluid. That's all. Just like friction. Friction is the property of the surface which opposes the motion of the object rolling or moving above it. In the same way, the viscosity is nothing but the frictional forces that opposes the relative motion between the 2 layers of a fluid. Fluid means gas and liquid. That is called viscosity. There is no unit for viscosity. The question must be the coefficient of viscosity. So whatever it may be, I am not going in details. The answer is Pascal second is the unit, and the dimensional formula is m L to the power of minus 1 e to the power of minus 1. That's all. You remember, you will get 2 marks. What is the working principle of carburetor? Almost all the questions of this chapter are related to Bernoulli's principle. What is Bernoulli's principle? I am not going into the detail. The answer is, so what is the working principle of carburetor? You have to write Bernoulli's principle. That's all. Carburetor exists in a vehicle. Is this clear? In any automobile you will find a carburetor. Carburetor is the place where the fuel burns in the presence of oxygen to give energy so that the vehicle can move. Why are water, it's not, why are water drops, it should be water drops and bubbles in a spherical, bubbles are in spherical shape? That is the question. Why? Answer is due to very simple surface tension. If you write this, you will get 2 marks. Answer is surface tension. Due to surface tension, both water drops or any liquid drop as well as bubbles are always in spherical shape. That is the reason why you can see raindrops are spherical in shape. Is this clear? Right. What is angle of contact? Suppose you have a capillary tube, it's just like a straw. I dip it in water, let us say in water. When I dip it in water, the water level in this rises. This is called capillarity. So here the point of contact, between liquid and this is the solid. Solid is nothing but the glass. So what I do, I draw a tangent at this point. The angle between the tangent drawn to the surface of the liquid and the solid surface is called angle of contact. I have to measure the angle of contact within the liquid. Are you following? So what is the definition of angle of contact? It is the angle between the tangent drawn to the point of contact of the liquid surface with that of the solid and the solid surface. The angle of contact is the angle between the tangent drawn to the liquid surface and solid surface. That's all. Inside the liquid. Even if you don't write inside the liquid also, they will award you 2 marks. Right. If theta is less than 90 degrees, then water level rises in this tube. If theta is greater than 90 degrees, water level falls. Suppose you take mercury and you dip one capillary tube, a glass tube with less bore. Then outside liquid level is more, inside the tube is less. So if angle of contact is greater than 90 degrees, then they are called non-wetting agents. That is the reason why the angle of contact between a polythene cover and water is greater than 90 degrees. So if I pour some water on a polythene cover, it doesn't get wet by the water. Suppose water is poured on my shirt, it gets wet because the angle of contact is less. Right. What is Magnus effect? Magnus effect is also due to Bernoulli's principle. You can write due to Bernoulli's principle. What happens? A spinning ball, suppose it is spinning. When I throw a ball, a spin bowler does this. I throw a ball such that while it is moving, it is spinning. When it is spinning, it gets lifted up. So this lifting is called dynamic lift. So lift because of the motion. So dynamic lift of a spinning ball is called Magnus effect. The dynamic lift of a spinning ball due to Bernoulli's principle. Right. Give the expression for excess pressure in a liquid drop. So we have two things, liquid drop and bubble. So this is liquid drop. In the case of liquid drop, you have only one surface because inside you have liquid. So when you have one surface, the excess pressure is given by 2s by r, where r is the radius. S is the surface tension. Here how many surfaces are there? Two. Interior one surface is there, exterior one surface is there. So in this case, excess pressure is 2s by r plus 2s by r. So that means 4s by r. This is in the case of bubble. This is in the case of liquid. Here the question is only related to liquid. So answer is 2s by r. Some people 2t by r, they write 2t by r. T stands for surface tension. Instead of taking s, they write t, it doesn't matter. Give the expression for the excess pressure in an air bubble inside the liquid. So this is a water. So some container of water. Inside this there is an air bubble. So how many surfaces are there? So this is water, no? So only one surface is there. So answer is excess pressure is equal to 2s by r. That's all. Give the expression for excess pressure of a soap bubble. Just now I told you soap bubble has got two surfaces, two free surfaces. So answer is 4s by r. What are waterproofing agents? So non-wetting agents. Waterproof means it doesn't get wet. Just now I told you. What are wetting agents? So for wetting agents, angle of contact. Just now I told you, angle of contact is less than 90 degrees. For waterproofing agents, angle of contact is greater than 90 degrees. That's all. If you write this, you will get 2 marks. When water flows through a pipe, which of the layers move faster? So this is a pipe through which water is going. So water is flowing. So which of the layers move faster? The central layer will move faster. The second one little bit faster. The third one will have less speed. The one which touches the surface of that metal tube will have 0 speed. So the central one is having more speed when compared to others. So answer is the central layer. If you write that, you will get 2 marks. That is due to viscosity. Mention any 2 examples or applications that obey Bernoulli's theorem and justify them. Just now I told you, dynamic lift, 1. So due to dynamic lift only, aeroplanes and helicopters, they get lifted up. Dynamic lift. Second one is Magnus effect. The first question, carburetor. You can write many. Functioning of stove burner. Of a stove burner. There are many. Why cricketers rub the ball before they throw it? That is also due to Bernoulli's principle. You can write many. Right. This is the last chapter carrying 2 questions. 2 questions means 4 marks. Kinetic theory. Kinetic theory of gases actually. Right. Define mean free path. Mean, average, free from collisions. Path is distance. In this room there are many air molecules, gas molecules. What they do? Will they sit? Ideal? No, they are not ideal like us. They keep on moving. That is the reason why that is called kinetic theory of gases. So one gas molecule collides with another gas molecule, then keeps on colliding with walls or with other molecules. The average distance between the two successive collisions is called mean free path of a gas molecule. The average distance traveled by a gas molecule before it gets collided with another gas molecule. So that distance is called mean free path. To what distance? It is free from collisions. The average distance between the any two collisions of a gas molecule is called a mean free path. If you write this, you will get 2 marks. Very simple. This question is repeated. When does a real gas behaves like an ideal gas? The condition is LP and HT, remember. What does it mean? At a low pressure and at high temperature. At very low pressure and at very high temperature, an ordinary gas behaves like an ideal gas. What is a real gas? What is an ideal gas? I am not going into the detail. So a real gas behaves like an ideal gas only in these two situations, in these two conditions. At very low, pressure must be very less and temperature must be very high. Remember LPHT. Is this clear? Right. State Dalton's law of partial pressures. It's a pure question of chemistry. Suppose I have a cylinder. I mix, in this cylinder I am taking some 3 or 4 gases. Let us say oxygen, nitrogen, helium, something. The total pressure exerted by the mixture of gases, let us say P. The total pressure exerted by this mixture of gases is equal to sum of the individual pressures exerted by the individual gases. Let us say hydrogen or nitrogen, whatever you have. That's all, very simple. The condition is at a constant pressure, at constant temperature and volume. No need to write. So what does it mean? Partial means individual. If you add individual pressures, you will get the pressure of the mixture. This is the statement. The total pressure exerted by a mixture of gases is equal to the sum of the individual pressures exerted by the individual gases. That's all. What is the expression between pressure and kinetic energy of a gas molecule? It's very simple. P is equal to 2 by 3 Ke. According to kinetic theory of gases, this pressure is equal to 1 by 3 mn c square. Here c is velocity, mn v square. If you take single molecule, I can write, you know, kinetic energy is equal to half mv square. By using these two, you can come to this conclusion. Pressure is equal to 2 by 3 times of kinetic energy. If you write this, you will get 2 marks. The absolute temperature of a gas is increased 3 times. What will be the increase in RMS? RMS means root mean square velocity of a gas molecule. So any velocity, there are 3 types of velocities in the case of a gas molecule. So any velocity is directly proportional to the square root of absolute temperature. Absolute temperature is the temperature measured in Kelvin. Right. So V1 by V2 is equal to root T1 by T2. This is the question. This is the expression, from that I can conclude. When the absolute temperature of a gas is increased 3 times, the velocity increases by root 3 times. Very simple. Here you put 3, so 3 comes out as root 3, then the 3 remains same. When the temperature is increased 3 times, then velocity increases by root 3 times. What will be the increase in RMS velocity? He is asking the increment. How much does it change? Initially it was 1, now it is root 3. So answer is root 3 minus 1. So it is equal to 1.732 minus 1. So answer is 0.732 times. The increment is this much. Is it clear? You can, if you want, you can do initially it is V, second one is V2, initially T, it is 3T. Then V2 will be, TT gets cancelled, V2 will be root 3V. Change in this, so V2 minus V1 is equal to root 3V minus V. So this is 0.732V times V, that's all. So change in velocity, that is the increment. If you do this, you will get 2 marks. That's all. These are the few questions which I selected, and I think they are helpful. You watch this video for 2 to 3 times, and you try to write the answers on a paper. Then you will be in a position to reproduce them in the exam hall. Is this clear? I think you understood and you get benefited from my videos. This is the last video in the series called mark scoring video. Thank you. All the best.